Last September, Inside Track spoke with Paul Yankee, who introduced Madera County's local Aging and Disability Action Plan, also known as LADAP. With the U.S. population aging rapidly, by 2030, 1 in 5 will be 65 or older. Madera County is committed to improving residents' quality of life. The Department of Social Services collaborated with community organizations and residents to develop LADAP, which is now finalized. Here to discuss the plan is Jocelyn Protopappas from San Diego State University College of Health and Human Services, Center for Excellence in Aging and Longevity, also known as SEAL, who contracted to lead the creation of LADAP. Welcome.
Thank you so much,
That's
Ashley.
a little bit of a mouthful.
It is, and that's why we go by SEAL. We keep it nice and short.
Excellent. So what is SEAL?
So our mission at SEAL is to help bridge academia with our government, community, and also the business world in San Diego to help address current challenges in the field of healthy aging and longevity. We do that through a multidisciplinary approach and through a lot of community partnerships and collaborations. Our current focus areas are age-friendly work, and that includes age-friendly university. So SDSU is an age-friendly university, so we do a lot of work to promote the principles of an age-friendly university on campus. That also includes age-friendly communities, which is what brought us here to Madera.
Okay, so before we get into the plan, introduce us to your team.
You got it. So our team is led by Steve Hornberger. And then the folks who have been along for the journey here in Madera have been my supervisor, Michelle Madera. She's the Director of Aging at SEAL, and my colleague, Fernando Reyes, who is our Workforce Development Manager.
Wonderful. So you guys have been here for a while, and one thing that's been referenced over and over is the 8 domains of livability. Who came up with 8 domains of livability, and why does it matter for LADAP?
You got it. So the 8 domains of livability they were created by the World Health Organization, and they serve as sort of a checklist when you're looking at your community to ensure that all the needs are being met for people who are aging in that community and those who are living with disabilities.
What are the 8 domains? Because I understand Madera has 6.
Yes, so the 8 domains of livability, the first one is outdoor spaces and public places. Outdoor spaces in an age-friendly community are safe, clean, and accessible. And they also have public spaces and public buildings that are accessible to older adults and individuals living with disabilities. The next domain is housing. Housing in an age-friendly community has affordable options, and it also has spaces that are accessible. You'll notice a kind of a thing that ties everything together here for age and disability-friendly communities is accessibility, of course. Mm-hmm. For public transportation, or for transportation, what we're looking for in an age-friendly community is reliable transportation and multimodal. So people have different options for transportation, and we also want it to be affordable. For social participation, this is one in Madera County where we put a couple different domains under one umbrella. Mm-hmm. We did community engagement for Madera County, and under that umbrella we have social participation, respect and inclusion, and then work, volunteerism, and civic engagement. And we did that because a lot of the feedback we were getting from the community in these 3 domains sort of deeply overlapped with each other, which makes sense. So we have this community engagement. And the idea behind that is that the community has opportunities to be civically engaged, to participate in cultural events, and also to have opportunities for intergenerational and community connections. So that's kind of that community engagement piece. We have communication and information, which again is a really important piece. We want to make sure that information is available to people in languages that they can read and in accessible ways, so that if there's any type of vision impairment, hearing impairment, anything like that, people are able to access information about what's going on in their community. In addition to that, we have community health and social services, and here we are in the building of social services. We know how critically important this is for aging and longevity to have access to the services you need. One thing that's really important to keep in mind, I think personally when I first started with this work, and a lot of times when people hear about age-friendly communities, they think, oh, this is specifically for older adults. Mm-hmm. But what we recognize is when we make a community age-friendly, it's actually good for people of all ages, from young to old. And so that's one piece to really keep in mind.
Fantastic. So you did listening sessions, you did surveys, you did
action plannings.
Action plannings. You guys have been here for a minute, and you gathered all that data. What did you find were like key key interests or areas of improvement for Madera?
You got it. So one thing that I just want to point out from the top was the openness of Madera County. It is really challenging to come into this process and know that a lot of work has to be done and that there's things that need to shift. But I will say all of the employees and people who work for the county that we encountered with in this process were so open and engaged, and their willingness to go out into the community multiple times to be told this isn't going well and that's not going well. It really blew my mind to just see that they want to make improvements and they want to make this community stronger and better. And the fact that they went to so many places to do it in this survey. So just from the top, I wanted to say that that was one thing that was highlighted by the Board of Supervisors was the comprehensiveness of the plan and engaging all the different communities. So I just have to shout out the county, and I also need to shout out the residents of Madera because they really were engaged in this whole process, and that's what really came through in actually creating the plan and made this thing come to life. So some areas that I really want to highlight were our senior centers. The senior centers here in Madera were highlighted as a hub. They're where people get information, social connection, they get food, they get resources. So the community center or the senior centers really were a hub in Madera. You know, one thing that was recognized in this process though is that to get to the senior centers, when we surveyed people and we went back for the listening sessions, is that a majority of people drive themselves to get to the senior center. Mm-hmm. And while there was somewhat of a community connection because some people, pick up their neighbors or pick up their friends to go to the senior center, there's also this recognition that sometimes transportation can be prohibitive to actually get to the senior center, mm-hmm. and can create social isolation for other people in the community who don't have that access. Mm-hmm. So transportation and figuring out how we can make it more accessible to get to these social hubs and be engaged is really important. On the flip side, for people who are socially isolated and unable to attend, we also need to get creative in how we engage those folks. And so there's some things written into the plan to help address social isolation in particular.
Fantastic. So keeping transportation as one of the topics, what were some of the action plans for transportation?
One thing that I thought was really interesting about transportation that I'll highlight is that when we went to the different senior centers in the community, so we went to Oakhurst, we were in Chowchilla, the city of Madera, and then Ranchos, is that the programs that the older adults and individuals with disabilities, the programs they liked in each community, varied really widely. And what works for each different area was different. But for example, the Dial-A-Ride program was highlighted in some of the communities, like Chowchilla and the city of Madera, as programs that have pros and cons. Mm-hmm. And even though it's the same program, the way it's being delivered in the different areas sometimes wasn't consistent. Mm-hmm. So one of our recommendations in the plan is to look at services like that are really something that could benefit the community and see how we could optimize and make sure that services are delivered more equitably across the different cities within the county.
And that's, like you said, it's kind of positive because they all have them. We just need to communicate a little better, right, as a mm-hmm. county.
And I'll say that was a huge highlight for all of this. So we went from the 8 domains that we talked about earlier, and we scaled down to 6 domains because they were highlighted in the survey as areas that needed focus. And there were so many programs here in Madera. This county has been working really hard to serve its people, and it's apparent in all of the programming across the county. But when people came together for the listening sessions and the action planning sessions, a lot of times it became an opportunity for people to share resources and to talk about, hey, you need a plumber. I know a guy over here who can do it for you at an inexpensive rate, or whatever it might be, or mm-hmm. talking about transportation. So what we recognized, and this is kind of common in these age-friendly communities, is that while there's a lot available, mm-hmm. sometimes the communication piece is a challenge. There's not something that's stringing together all these programs for people or allowing them to see it in a comprehensive way. So communication and information mm-hmm. is, you know the importance of communication. Right. That's the business we're in here. Yeah. So, but that was one of the key areas that we came back to time and time again, is that communication and getting information out to people mm-hmm. in multiple channels and in multiple ways is really critically important because there's a lot going on here and it's a big county.
So you mentioned the Board of Supervisors. Mm-hmm. So that was last Tuesday. How did it go? What was the end result?
Well, great news, of mm-hmm. course. The plan passed when we took it to the Board of Supervisors. And I just wanted to say about that experience, what was really cool was when we presented the plan, almost every single member on the board had some personal connection or something really positive to say about the plan. And so, you know, we afterwards, we were talking to someone in the hallway and they were like, we've never seen the board so engaged, we've never seen them so excited. So for us, that's just really speaks to how important this plan is. Our population is rapidly aging and we really need to have the supports and structures in place. And I think there's a huge recognition that we need to be ahead of that. So.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Ashley. It's been a pleasure to be in Madera. We've made so many connections, so many friends, and it's been a really wonderful opportunity for us, so we're grateful.
All right, well that concludes this episode of Inside Track. If you have any questions about today's episode or have suggestions for future episodes, you can direct those to the DSS Media Studio mailbox. Tune in next month for another episode of Inside Track. For the DSS Media team, I'm Ashley Monk. Thank you for watching.